Thumbs up. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the council meeting for December 12th, 2023. As we have quorum, I will call the meeting to order. The time is 7 p.m. I always like to start the meeting off in a good way by acknowledging that the city of Maple Ridge conducts its business under traditional and unceded territory of the Katzie First Nation and the Kwantlen First Nation. Madam Clerk, is there anything you wish to share with us?
Yes, good evening. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available to the public for playback on our website in accordance with Council Policy 3.12. The purpose of a council meeting is to enact powers given to council using bylaws or resolutions and is the venue for a debate of issues before voting on a bylaw or resolution. This meeting is being conducted through the city's One Meeting platform. For voting purposes, council has been provided with voting cards, green for in favor, red for opposed, and yellow for a point of order. For members of the public who would like to speak during the public question period, if you are participating electronically, please register as a speaker by clicking on the raise hand icon and turning your mic and camera on. When you're called on, please clearly state your name and city of residence. If you're attending the meeting in person, please come forward to the podium when the mayor invites speakers and clearly state your name and city of residence before beginning your comment. Participants are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak to council. A second opportunity may be provided once all speakers in the queue have had an opportunity to speak. The total time allotted for the public question period is 15 minutes. That concludes our opening statement.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to the next item. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Being none, we'll go to the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion? Moved by Councillor Dewick, seconded by Councillor Carreras. Any additions or comments or anything to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to move to the adoption of the minutes, and we have with us 4.1. We have report of the public hearing November 21st, report of public hearing from December 5th, regular council meeting from November 28th, special council meeting from November 21st, and then a special council meeting from December 5th. Can I get a motion to move these items, please? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Schiller. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. What's on the agenda next, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item is the Recreation Facility Feasibility Staff Update, and staff are in attendance to present.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. With me this evening is Krista Bellotti, our manager of special projects, reporting to my office. We are going to be embarking on a public engagement process starting in the new year on one of your number one priorities, and that is a replacement aquatics, or I guess an additional aquatics facility for the community. So we thought it would be important to update council on sort of our plans, as well to introduce the consultant team, although they're physically not here tonight. But Krista will also introduce council to the consultant team that will be carrying the ball on getting us a new facility in the future. And so with that, Mr. Mayor and members of council, over to you, Krista.
Thank you. So good evening, Mayor and members of council. As Mr. Laban had mentioned, I'm Krista Bellotti, manager of special projects with the Parks, Recreation and Culture Department. Tonight, I will provide an update on the award of contract for the recreation facility study, providing some highlights of the project management and engagement. There you go. And just to recap some of the work to date, it was during the 2023 business planning, the capital funds were approved to conduct an aquatic feasibility study, as well as an assessment and design of a fifth ice sheet. From there, during this past summer, the notification to the public was provided and communications launched to inform of the intentions of conducting a feasibility study. The study will ensure that the due diligence for the Hammond Community Park site is followed to better understand the logistical and financial implications, and to provide staff and council alike with the information necessary to support any and all related business decisions. And then earlier this fall, we tendered the RFP for a firm that would lead the engagement, analysis, design concept, and overall scope of the feasibility study. Oops, wrong way. So why is the feasibility study focusing on aquatics and arenas? During the PRC master plan process that was conducted last year and finished this year in Q1, the feedback received from the public strongly identified the desire for additional recreation facilities. Council endorsed this plan earlier this year, and the plan assigns the highest priority of an indoor aquatic facility, and thus a corresponding strategy was to undertake a feasibility analysis for a new aquatic facility to serve this community. I keep going the wrong way. I'm going to spend a little bit of time just to review the study scope. There are a number of fairly comprehensive actions that are intended to roll out between now and July of next year. The community engagement is the first piece of business of the project. And I'm going to speak to this a little bit later in the presentation. Overlapping slightly with engagement is the research analysis program recommendation phase that includes a service level assessment, review of trends and best practices, future demand and gap assessments, and a site assessment. This work combined with the results of the community engagement will identify the opportunities and barriers of the existing recreation system, bring to the forefront the project's needs, and resulting in recommendations on aquatics, arenas, and other recreation services. So these two previous phases will directly inform the development of the design concepts that are grounded in aquatic and arena program models, including an outdoor, indoor, and hybrid aquatic facility. These concepts could also include other amenities that were identified in the master plan and that would enhance the operational synergies such as a library, fitness space, indoor running track, multi-use and community spaces, children's play area, and youth and older adult activity spaces. The design concepts will also embed environmental sustainable options in construction and operations of the facility. So after the design concepts are completed, there is a technical analysis that will be underway during this step. This analysis includes geotechnical analysis to determine the site's conditions in support of a large multi-use facility, topographical survey to ensure the design concepts will fit on the site, considering site grades, drainage, and lot boundaries. There will be a preliminary traffic and parking review of the surrounding road networks and a preliminary identification of any needed roads or active transportation enhancements. As well, there will be an archaeological overview assessment of the Hammond Community Park location. And from there, there will be a preliminary Class D capital estimate and operating costing exercise that will provide analysis necessary to determine the facility costs. The RFP was out for tender from September 13th to October 16th, receiving 35 plan takers registered for the bid. Through the evaluation process, HCMA Architecture and Design was awarded the contract to complete the aquatics and arena feasibility study. The city has worked with HCMA in the past, and they are experienced in engaging with our residents and user groups in Maple Ridge through previous works on the 2017 recreation infrastructure projects. And interestingly enough, they've also developed their preliminary concept plans for the Albion Community Center. So HCMA has considerable knowledge in community and recreation projects, municipal environments, and public engagement. I'm just going to walk through a few of their key facilities that they are working on currently. So the Thomas Sott Aquatics and Community Center, New Westminster, had a feasibility study and scope that included site analysis, a proposed building program, cost analysis, a technical overview, and program options of the new facility. So very similar to the work that we're doing. HCMA was selected to design and construct the project, which is currently under construction and planned for reopening in spring of 2024. As well as HCMA completed a similar feasibility study for the city of North Vancouver for the new Harry Jerome Community Recreation Center that will open in 2026. And again, this facility includes many of the program aspects that are anticipated for review for our rec study, including a focus on accessibility and inclusivity within aquatic spaces, ice arenas, spectator seating, fitness spaces, gymnasiums, and gathering spaces. And HCMA was also retained to be part of the project through to completion. So HCMA has partnered with Cornerstone, who will oversee the engagement and research of our recreation study. They will lead the focus community and stakeholder components and operational modeling of the design concepts. They have worked with the City of Abbotsford for their aquatic services and facilities strategy, as well as Abbotsford Arena Services and Facilities Strategy, and have done the Bonsor Recreation Complex Future Growth Strategy, just to name a few. Not to speak too further on their expertise, but they have also been involved in the Grandview Heights Aquatic Center in the city of Surrey, which interesting enough includes a 10-lane, 50-meter Olympic-sized competition pool with a dive platform. And to the bottom left is the Hillcrest Center, and to the right is the Rosemary Brown arenas that are currently under construction. So these examples demonstrate HCMA's experience with similar projects that results in construction of new large multi-use facilities in these municipalities. So as mentioned earlier, I will spend a little bit of time on the public engagement phase. So the full engagement plan is in development and it's aimed to be completed by the end of 2023. And within this plan are key timelines for public awareness, survey distribution, user group meetings, open houses and analysis that will end in a What We Heard report. So really this stage will launch in mid-January and will go until about mid to late February of next year. So in mid-January, we're anticipating the survey launches. It'll be out for approximately 3 weeks or so. And then through that, from there will be a number of open houses and user group interviews, up to 20 plus interviews with key user groups and stakeholders. And we look forward to coming back to council in around mid to late February to engage council on this work as well, and to hear your thoughts around the designs and what you would like to see in a brand new multi-use facility. And just a couple of more public engagement mechanisms. So the Engage Maple Ridge site will be launched early in the new year, as will an update to our city webpage. We currently have a landing site for this information on the web, on the city sites, and that will continue to be an avenue where the public can find all the key milestones between now and July. As mentioned, there'll be surveys, open houses, we'll be conducting staff engagement, and to create a lot of buzz and education, there will be walkabouts in various pop-up locations of the events that are occurring throughout January and February, as well as information boards in our recreation facilities. So really aiming to get the information out to the public and ensure they have knowledge of how to provide the feedback. So just to wrap up and to review the key timelines. So the first round of engagement results will be compiled into a What We Heard report, identifying the community's wants, and a technical report will result from the survey, open houses, and workshop sessions. And as well in January and February will be the research and analysis. So there's lots of work that's already compiled that will help inform this work, including all of the engagement already received through our PRC master planning. There'll be a review of the condition assessments of the Leisure Center and Planet Ice, as well as aquatic and arena trend and best practices review, future demand and gap analysis, and identification of program recommendations. HCMA will provide a report that identifies the needs, opportunities, and deficiencies from the research, including the community engagement findings. And this will formulate the recommendation for the program model for the aquatic, arena, and recreation services. And then the next step on that would be those two aspects will inform the concept designs in March and April. And then to round out the project in May through July, there will be a capital costing report that will follow with the high-level operational costs of each design concept. There will also be a report that follows that provides program space inventory, program priorities, design concept plans, capital costing, and budget projections. There will be a second round of community engagement right before, it'll likely time at the end of June, beginning of July, where we'll test those concepts and associated costs with the public and allow for further comment. And then all of this will be wrapped up in a final report and will be brought forward to council for some key decisions on the next steps of and the future of this facility development project. So I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's exciting to see how much work has gone in already and the timeline. So it's great to see that by hopefully before we break next summer, we should have a report to us and see what that looks like. So I know everyone on council is excited about this. It's something that we all talked about during the campaign, every one of us. So it's exciting to see it come through. So thank you very much for that. So at this point, I'll ask for any speakers who wish to ask questions, or Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Bellotti, for the presentation. On the community engagement through the chair, is this going to be citywide, or will it be limited to the immediate vicinity or neighborhood of where the proposed facility is meant to go?
Through the chair, to Councillor Youssef, it will be citywide. There'll be some targeted sessions at and around the Hammond Community Park, but this is a citywide facility. So the intention is to be far-reaching.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I asked the question because, of course, I understand that we do have a need in our community. However, when this first broke, if you will, to use the news analogy, there was a lot of pushback against this particular location. So I'm just kind of wondering where the engagement is going to take place. And then, of course, worst case scenario, if we do receive negative feedback, do we have a plan B, I'm hoping, other than a site, or are we going after the site kind of philosophy through the chair?
I don't know if that's an easy question to answer. It's a pretty much hypothetical. But Mr. Laban.
At this point,
Crack at it.
Councillor Youssef, this is the one location that we're looking at this point in time, and this is where all of our eggs are all in our baskets right now.
Understood. Thank you. And that's kind of what
stand
I was
corrected.
looking for. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my question.
All right, thank you. Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't think that on a 12-hour day would be a day to say that this is a good day to be a council member, but this is certainly super exciting. Really, I only have one question, which is if everything goes well, sort of if we go through the process and after July, after the report back to council, and council is in agreement with that and all the decisions, when are we looking at for construction?
Can I defer to you?
So I think, Councillor Tan, the next step in the process would be for council to provide a funding envelope for us to go and do the detailed design work that's needed and the final costing of the facility. And during that or prior to that process, actually, I think there will probably be a conversation with council around how we're going to finance this thing too. So there's a number of big conversations coming up once this work is done, which I suspect will happen in the fall of 2024.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Certainly, we have to do this in a way that's fiscally responsible for everyone around this, for everyone in the city. So we'll definitely think hard about that. I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited, particularly given that our growth is around, we really need the growth around the town center area, around the transit areas with the BRT stops. And really, this is where, we look at the Lougheed Transit Corridor Plan and the town center plan. Really, I see this as, I'm happy about where we have landed with the aquatic center. And I don't know what else to say, Mayor. So I'm going to stop talking instead of be excited.
Thank you for your enthusiasm. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Bellotti, and we look forward to the next phase.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda are items listed on the consent agenda to be considered for approval in one motion unless a member of council wishes to discuss an item and requests that it be excluded. Each item removed from the consent agenda will be debated and voted on separately by council. Consent agenda items are listed on the screens before you, but they were also all included in your agenda package. So there's 4 slides.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask now, is there, I need a motion to move these items, please. Moved by Councillor Carreras, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Go ahead, Councillor Carreras.
It's not a debate. It's just a quick question on the council appointments. There are more council appointments coming because I think we've had some requests for there's more coming in the new year.
Is that a question? Yes.
Yes.
I don't have an answer to that. Is there more coming?
Well, we've had requests over the last few months for council, and I don't know if we've made a decision, so I'm just wondering where they are in the stream.
To yourself and the members of council, at this moment of time, we're going to be doing a review of your committees in your terms of reference, and we'll be bringing this, council will be involved in that conversation in the new year. So it'd be at that time where we would be discussing
Discuss the
some of
new
those other
ones.
requests
The new ones that have
to
come in in
some
the last year.
agencies that have asked for some additional council support. The time to have that conversation is in January.
Yeah, that's fine. I
Thank
just want the community to know that have sent a request that we haven't forgotten, that there's still conversations ongoing, that this isn't the full list. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. If I'd known that's the answer you're looking for, I would have given it to you. Any comments or questions or on the consent agenda? Seeing none, then we've already passed motion. Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We're moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item on the agenda is bylaws, and the first one is 9.1, Maple Ridge Subdivision and Development Servicing Amending Bylaw number 7950-2023 to reduce the off-site frontage requirements for single-family rebuilds in unit suites and detached garden suites, to increase the affordability of construction, incentivize construction of detached garden suites, and reduce permit application times.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Schiller. Any comments, questions on this item? Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Mayor Remy. And as we've worked through this one, I've certainly come to appreciate, and my own feeling is that doing these improvements one by one is not the most efficient way to go, and it does present a barrier to homeowners, and so I'm happy to support it. I did just want to share the perspective, though, that this is for single family homes. People living in other types of homes are the developers, and ultimately one would think the homeowners are still paying for this type of improvement. So I just think as we move forward with this way of doing things, that we want to make sure that when we're funding the improvements for single family homes, that those costs are more directly directed back to single family homes. It's just a perspective that I wanted to share, but I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ten.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to echo Councillor Schiller's comments, and I think that I will also be supporting this. And I just still think those consequences are something that I share. Sort of my thinking around this is that I also appreciate that in this time, then many single family homes, like in the rebuilding of, not all of them, but certainly a percentage of them have become multi-generational homes where there are multiple households living together. And that's certainly, I think, something that leads to a lot of community cohesion, and something that we do want to see of families finding more creative ways of living together in this housing crisis. So I will be supporting, but I also just want to make a note I just want to echo that and say that that's a philosophy I would be interested in sharing. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The items in the committee reports and recommendations category are staff reports presented at an earlier committee of the whole meeting, typically a week prior, to provide council with an opportunity to ask staff detailed questions. The items are now before the regular council meeting for debate and vote. The first item is item 10.1, Maple Ridge Zone Amending Bylaw number 7772-2021 for properties located at 12209, 12219, 12231, 11241, and 11251 222 Street and 22190 123rd Avenue to rezone from RS1 to RM2 to permit the future construction of two six-story apartment buildings with a total of 152 market strata dwelling units.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Any comments? That yes? Sorry?
Second.
What did I say?
There was a question. But second.
Oh.
Confirming that I was second.
Okay, thank you for confirming. Long day. Comments or questions on this item? Councillor Schiller.
Me? Thank you. So I do support the land use proposed here as an apartment building. I think it makes sense in this location. And in reading the report, it would seem that this proposal sort of falls in line with changes we've been discussing around the off parking requirements. And that's what I wanted to speak to specifically. I think we're going in the right direction when we're looking at reducing some of the parking minimums in specific areas in the community, such as the town center. But I see that as being part of a direction that promotes other forms of transportation, alternate forms, rather than vehicles. And so my sense is that this proposal sort of meets the requirements of the proposed bylaw in terms of a reduction in vehicle parking. Believe that staff are supporting that and recommending that we waive the cash in lieu that would be required under the current bylaw. But there seems to be quite a significant shortfall in bicycle parking. So if we look again to the proposed bylaw, I believe that there would be 190 spaces of long-term parking, but only 78 are proposed. And so I just wanted to raise this concern because I think you can't sort of have it both ways. I think if you're reducing parking for vehicles, you have to be providing a building that's designed to support alternate forms of transportation. So I'll just leave it there for now and see where other members of council fall on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody wishes to speak to this item? Councillor Ten.
Thanks, Mayor. I think I certainly appreciate where Councillor Schiller is coming from. I think there are lots of things that I really appreciate about this development. I really appreciate that there are 8 3-bedroom units here, and there's a substantial amount of 2 and 3-bedroom units. So I really appreciate that of this about the application. I am quite concerned about the variances sought of in the bicycle parking. I share that concern. So I would be because I think it would be short-sighted of us to substantially reduce the amount of long-term bicycle parking. So I would be supportive here of a referral back to staff. And I think I just want to leave that to the floor and see where that goes. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak to this item? No. Perhaps is the developer here on this one? Oh, no, sorry. No, sorry. Not the right process. Sorry. Okay. No other questions on this one? So we know there's questions about the parking, the bicycle parking. Okay. All right. Okay. So if there's no other questions, I will call the question. All those in favor? Is that a question? Yeah, you can do a second round. Sure you can.
I think I'd like to put a referral motion back on the table and to send this back to staff to have a greater in-depth look at the bicycle parking.
Point of order.
Mr. Chair, the vote was already called.
That's the vote was already called?
It was called,
Okay.
but the votes were not counted.
Okay. Sorry.
Mm,
Okay, I'm looking at all these faces here. Sorry, we're gonna follow the process and the vote was called, so I did ask for more questions. There weren't any other questions, so I did call the question. Point of order.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I believe you called for a second round and I had my card up. And I'm not sure if I was seen in that second round calling when you called for a second round and I put my card up.
When I called for any more questions, I did not see any cards up. I didn't see any cards up.
Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Sorry. Okay, so the vote has been passed and we're gonna move on to the next item.
Sorry, no, I need to count the votes.
Okay. Recalling the vote, all those in favor? Okay, all those in favor and all those opposed? Motion's carried 6-1. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next item.
Thank you. The next item is 10.2, application 2019-051-RZ, for property located at 11405 236th Street to rezone from RS3 to RM1 to permit the future construction of 18 townhouse units. Recommendation is on the screen.
Okay, can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Counselor Duick, seconded by Counselor Youssef. Comments, questions on this item? Long day. Counselor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to recognize Mr. McMullen. I know I was asking questions about the topography of the dedication park, and through background work, he was able to get me clarification on what is going on with the conservation park dedication portion of this property, as well as the policy governing it. And in this case, unfortunately, Parks and Recreation does not see a trail to be going through it. So it will be a conservation park without much use to the public in its current form. So just wanted to report that back out. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is 10.3, application 2021-280-RZ for property located at 22306 122 Avenue to rezone from RS1 to RT2 to permit future construction of a fourplex. This is for second reading, and the motion is on the screen.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Counselor Youssef, seconded by Counselor Schiller. Comments or questions? Being none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is 10.4, application 2021-389-RZ for property located at 11619, 11631, 11639 Adair Street to rezone from RS1 to RT2 to permit the future construction of 3 triplexes on 3 separate lots.
Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Counselor Youssef, seconded by Counselor Carreras. Comments or questions? Being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Item 10.5, application 2023-111-RZ. Bylaw number 7600-2019 for housekeeping amendments that provides minor clarifications and corrections to the zone amending bylaw 7600-2019.
Can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Counselor Youssef, seconded by someone, Counselor Carreras. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? So, looks like it's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
10.6, application 2023-350-RZ for property located at 24070 128 Avenue and 24195 Fern Crescent to rezone from RS3 to CD 5-23 to facilitate the development of 48 townhouse dwelling units. And there's 2 slides on this recommendation.
Is it one recommendation or 2? One?
One recommendation
Okay,
on
good.
2 slides.
Okay, so can I get a motion for this item? Moved by Counselor Duick, seconded by Counselor Youssef. Comments, questions? Counselor Carreras, followed by Counselor Schiller.
Thanks. A couple of questions on this one to make sure I've got this pat from when we chatted last time. So this one was originally was single family homes. That was the original approval back in 2022. And now it's come back for 48 townhomes. And the 48 townhomes are significantly over what is expected for FSR on that. Okay. So I don't have a lot of issue with it going from single family home to townhouse. I get that. I do struggle with the density of this townhouse and complex and where it's being suggested. And my challenges with that are that it is being high density, much more than what was considered. What was considered in the OCP was 27 family homes, right? In the OCP said family homes. And again, like I said, times have changed, totally fine with townhouses, but I think this density is a challenge in this area because there's no transit, no reliable transit. From what I got from our committee of the whole, there's no, I don't know if engineering's here. Yeah, there's Mr. Halpin. There's not like on our first wave to have expansion of transit there. There's not an expansion of active transportation in this area on the first wave. Like it's not thought of. Although it's not our jurisdiction, there is no school capacity anytime soon in this area. We still have a lot of work to do on the 240th bridge and the expansion of Abernathy to give a second route. So I'm just really struggling with the density of this one. Not that it's townhouses, just the density. And then you're putting it in an area with no active transportation, no transit, and you're making the garages so small you can't get a vehicle into it. So those are my challenges with this one. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to vote until I hear the debate, but I'm not feeling very comfortable with this one. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Mayor Bimi, and I'll be echoing much of what Councillor Kerr has shared. I like that this has been rethought of as a townhouse development. I absolutely support a diversity in housing types, and I have no issue with density in certain areas of the city, but I think we need to be thoughtful about it. And going back and looking at the Silver Valley area plan, it's the horse hamlet. It's an equestrian focused area near recreation. So the lot is designated as a medium to high density area, but what that means within the current OCP is an upwards maximum of 40 units per hectare. This development, as it stands currently, is proposing 58 units per hectare. I just have not heard a rationale that would support that level of density against what's currently there. I think that density, the 40 units per hectare was put in for a reason, and I don't see that anything has materially changed. So again, I don't have any issue with this being townhouses, but I do want to look at this one kind of carefully. This is a first and second reading, and so I think it's important at this point that we have a fulsome discussion about this proposal beyond just the general land use. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have your hand up, Councillor Duick? Okay, good. Councillor Duick. All the blur. And Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate the comments of my colleagues. I guess I look at the overall project. I look first off that staff are supporting it. I'm looking at the comments and answers from Committee of the Whole. It checks off a lot of boxes. So there's a lot of, like, there's EV charging, bike storage, separate storage for garage, garbage and that. I know the comments around parking and the size of the units, but they are double carports. There's a good percentage of them. I think about 25% that would accommodate big trucks and vans from what I recall. The fact that it has separate area for bicycle storage and garbage means people realistically should be able to park in the garages. I know it is a challenge that we hear all the time that people aren't using their garages, but I guess that's where we come in. And, if there's nowhere for them to park on the street, they're going to be forced to use their garages. And so, and it does, I appreciate where the applicant's coming from, the rationale between single family and townhouses. The other checkbox is 3 and 4 bedrooms. I hear that around the table all the time. So the density piece, the trade-off is for the density, the applicant is contributing $1 million to the city. There's some dedication of funds for the park. So there's a lot of positives. Traffic is definitely a negative in the overall Silver Valley, but that's incumbent on us to look at it from a city perspective, which I know staff are looking at. The whole overall Fern Crescent, we have to look at the 240th bridge. We have to do that. So whether this application goes forward or not, we have to do that. So it is a priority that we need to look at. So for me, I fully support this. I think it serves the needs that we've been talking about around the table, and staff are supporting it. So I would like to see it go forward. I'll wait and hear what others have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the garage sizes, I believe from my own experience and from what I've seen of this application, comparing it with the requirements that are coming down the pipeline for multifamily units, it does fit, as Councillor Dewick said, a normal size pickup truck. My vehicle personally tends to be longer than most, and I can fit it in that size of a garage. So I don't see why an SUV wouldn't. It'll be a nice fit. And of course, given that there is extra space, be it as it was pegged for recycling or other purposes, so there is the space. There isn't any opportunity for residents to park on the street because of course it's right on Fern, and being within the complex, if you will, or the compound of the development is going to lend to people utilizing their garages for that purpose. To the density, I see that the site plan does offer a significant amount of green space and open area that residents would be able to enjoy. So they're not going to be claustrophobic, if you will. It's not like we're trying to shoehorn that many people in there. And again, I concur with Councillor Dewick that the work that we as the city have to do to provide the transportation and the road network, that shouldn't be on the back of an application. So for those reasons, I would definitely support a product like this coming into our city. And I don't really see it as an outlier. We've seen other developments of the similar size and scope going along that corridor, and they've worked out magnificently and people are enjoying them. And it's one of our fastest growing neighborhoods. And again, the onus is on us to provide the services for those residents that we are attracting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. No. So I'm not seeing any questions. Round two. Councillor Schiller, Councillor Dewick, Councillor Carreras.
Thank you, Mayor Remy. This is a question I had when I was looking at this, and it's a specific question. So I'll just ask it of staff, and if you're able to answer it, that's great. But I appreciate if you're not, I appreciate why. So in the Silver Valley area plan, in regards to the Horse Hamlet specifically, my understanding from reading the plan was that it said that a total of 240 units, residential units, are allocated to Horse Hamlet. Are staff able to say how many units have already been built in that hamlet?
No, we don't have an exact number on the number of units built. The Horse Hamlet is not built out, so it wouldn't be near approaching the 240 units, but we don't have a number.
Okay, I appreciate that context nonetheless. Today we've talked a lot about things that the city needs. I don't dispute the fact that probably developments like this have been approved in the past, but I sometimes when I'm sitting here sort of struggle to understand where we're ever going to catch up to these ever increasing infrastructure needs if we continue to build fairly dense developments in areas that really are outlying. It does require road upgrades. It does require sewer, and not only one-time upgrades, but the maintenance costs. I'm not convinced myself that this really does pay for itself. I appreciate we need housing, and I agree. I think it makes sense to relook at what was proposed a few years ago and look at how we can deliver a product that meets the needs of today. When I read the original report, I believe it said in there that planning staff calculated that the density should come in around 33 or 34 units. So again, I see this as being a significant difference that requires a change to the OCP. And I just don't see the justification for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dewick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if staff can answer the question, should this project have gone ahead with the 27 single-family lots, would they have been eligible to have basement suites?
Yes, they would have. I'm just looking at the R1 zone that was proposed. They can have suites in it. They
Yes.
could have had suites
So
each of them.
theoretically, we could have had 54 units in this space if they had been allowed to have basement suites, with a lot less taxes coming into the city of Maple Ridge. So I raise that because if you look at what could have happened with single family versus what's being proposed, I see this as way more beneficial in the contributions to the city, but also, as was mentioned, the green space around, the fact that the garages, the EV charging, the bike storage, all those things are all pluses. And the most important piece is families. I mean, I hesitate to say this is affordable, but it's more affordable than a single family unit. And that's the key thing here. So, you know, on one hand, we talk about affordable housing. This is a form of that. So that's why I'm going to support it. Thank you.
And Councillor Carreras.
Thank you. I would be happy with a townhouse development. So just the single family versus townhouse, I'd be happy with that. It's just the density of the 48, to be clear. Can staff just walk me through? I know I'm stuck on this garage piece, which seems like a really stupid thing, and I get it. But you know, I have a garage now that is the regular size, no variances. And we don't have a lot of stuff in there, and it's still hard to get two regular size vehicles in there. So can you just walk me through the differences where the garbage and recycling and the bike storage is going to be in relation to the garage? Because I don't know if I heard that correctly from committee of the whole, that it was quite isolated, or tell me where in the package. I may have missed it because it is a big package. Sorry.
I actually can't say exactly where the bike and garbage storage would be in the garages, but the garages in that zone are a little bit larger. They're set out a little bit larger in the zoning bylaw for the RM1 zone than other zones. And so the reductions they are reducing the size, but not as small as in previous townhouse zones or in other areas of the city. But I don't actually have the location of the garbage and the bicycle.
But the garages are being, because I'm trying to find, I know we talked about this and I just can't find it in the package right now where the variance is as to how much. I think it was like 5.5 meters, I think was the length of the garage.
Yes, the reason I don't have it is the presentation actually PowerPoint had those dimensions, but the staff
Okay, so
report
that's where I
doesn't
saw it
have
in the PowerPoint,
This is
not in the
why I
package.
Don't have it at my.
And okay, so at this point, you can't actually tell me that the garage, that the bike storage and the garbage and recycling are separate from the garage that's already being minimized?
I can't tell you that right now.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at the report here about that. The current allowable density being the maximum of 33 to 34. Through you, could I please ask staff about the traffic impact of 33 units under the current allowable density versus the 48 units proposed? What would that traffic look like with that extra 15 units during peak AM and PM periods?
Yes, through the chair. We're dealing with about two to three vehicles change per peak hour.
Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll just throw my 2 cents in here. We're obviously faced with a housing crisis, but does that mean at all costs? If, you know, the question I asked today earlier was the new legislation from the province would this unit be applicable to that? And the answer is no, it wouldn't be applicable to that. So the province in itself is kind of staying away from those types of developments, and especially to where they are. We know that that area is a challenge already with cars and parking and just overall, just not a lot of room to do much there. And there are already other developments there. So I struggle with the 48 myself, and I'm not sure where we go from here, but I thought I'd say my 2 cents on there. Okay, Councillor Carreras.
I don't want to miss the opportunity before you call for the vote and I get my hand slapped. I mean, I would like to refer this back to staff to look at. Well, quick on the vote. I'd like to refer this back to staff so that they can just discuss the availability of doing it to the FSR envisioned in the plan. Again, stick with townhouses. I'm happy with townhouses, just less density.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do you have a seconder to that motion? Counselor Schiller. All right, let's talk about that. Any comments or questions to that motion? Counselor Youssef, followed by Counselor Schiller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a hand slap, rather procedure. Secondly, this application has already been sort of through the ringer with staff. They've come back, they've gone back and forth, and the applicant has accommodated all of what staff has requested, hence why staff are proposing that and supporting it. The current financial environment does not allow for this to become an affordable project if we continue to have those costs build up that will eventually be passed on to the end user, to the families that will be living in these spaces. Therefore, I do not support a referral back to staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And just as a side note there, committee as a whole, as you know, is not the time for commentary, just the time for questions. So the time for commentary is now based on what we heard from there. So I think it's fair to people to have this discussion in this chamber right now. Counselor Schiller.
Thank you, Mayor Remy. And I do support this being referred back to staff. And I just wanted to raise another aspect of this, which is the loss of green space. 27 single family homes, I suspect would have allowed for more green space to continue to exist. And that's separate from the affordability question. But I just think there does need to be areas of the community that are not densely developed because we do need that natural space. And this, in my mind, is a location that makes sense for the preservation of green space at the expense of other priorities. And I will be referring or supporting this motion. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Duick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm kind of caught in the middle here because I can see where the vote's going, and if it becomes a 3-3 tie or a
No tie.
4-2, then
We're 5 of us here, so
yeah,
you can't tie.
No, there's 6.
there's
No,
6
there's
of us.
us.
Oh,
So
sorry,
I'm
there's
doing
6.
the
I can't
math.
count.
Yeah.
Doing the math, and as much as I want to vote for this project going ahead, I don't want to see it fail either. So I guess the question is, what are we actually directing it to go back to staff? What are we asking for? Because I'm not sure that that's clear. I heard less density, but I also heard more green space and single family. So what would we be referring back to staff?
Okay, Counselor
So the
Ferreras.
referral that I made was that that staff go back to the developer to look at something that is still townhomes, but within the FSR that's envisioned for this area. So that's just the density piece.
Okay.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
further comments or questions? Is that a point of order? Sorry? Okay. well,
Point of order.
Yeah, point of order, but use your mic, please. Thanks.
Point of personal privilege. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Just to make sure I understand, what happens in the case of a tie?
What happens if
In the case of a tie? tie
it
vote.
fails?
I see. Thank you.
So, Counselor, sorry,
They're on an amended motion.
Counselor Durick is correct. If it's a tie, it fails.
And that's the case for both referral motions and the main motion? Yes, that's the case for both
Yeah.
motions. I see. Thank you.
No.
Sorry.
The question would be called on the referral. And if that failed, then the motion is still on the floor.
Thank you.
As presented.
I appreciate
And
that.
the
And then
point
if
that-
it's tied, thank you, Madam Clerk, and if it ties at the main motion, then the main motion also fails. I see. Thank you.
That's where Counselor Durick was saying, I see where the winds are blowing here, so. Okay, so any more comments on the not amended motion, but on the motion to refer? Seeing none, I will call the question on the motion to refer. All those in favor? Wait. Are you in favor of referral, or you're not in favor of referral? Okay, so we've got 3-2. So motion to refer passes. Okay, good. All right. Thank you.
No, that's only 5 votes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I figured you already had it. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The next item is item 10.7. Application 2022-081 for a development permit and development variance permit at 22313, 22315, and 22321 Selkirk Avenue to permit the future construction of a 6-story mixed-use podium-style building with 2 levels of underground parking. 38 notices were mailed out and 0 pieces of correspondence have been received.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Comments, questions? Councillor Carreras.
I asked a question at committee of the whole and I didn't quite get an answer. I'm wondering if staff were able to look into it. This is the one with the accessible unit, which I absolutely applaud and I love. It's fantastic. But there's no increase in accessible parking spots. And so my question was, they get 2 accessible parking spots as per policy, but I'm curious if the accessible unit will have an accessible parking spot assigned to it. So you get a 3rd one, but it's assigned to that unit.
Through to council, no, there's just 2 accessible spaces. And one of them in the plans is outside of the gate, but can be moved inside of the gate. So there will be 2 accessible spaces that can be located within in the gate, one for the accessible unit, another additional one on top of that.
So we'll only have one general accessible
Right.
unit because one of those 2 will be assigned to the unit.
That,
Okay,
yes.
so we're still going to lose an accessible parking space because
Well-
it's supposed to technically have 2.
It's only one is required under the
Only one
bylaw.
is required.
So
Okay,
they have the one general one and then the one assigned to the
Okay.
unit they can have.
that's all I need to know. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The next item is 10.8, film policy and fee update. And this is to adopt a comprehensive and modernized film policy and the fees and charges bylaw. This is in front of council for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd reading. And also to endorse the Maple Ridge film policy.
Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Schiller. Comments or questions, please? Being none, call the question. Sorry, was that a question? No, question, Councillor Carreras. I didn't actually call the question. Yeah. Okay, seeing as how there's no comments or questions, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, please. Madam Clerk.
Item 10.9 is the sponsorship, advertising, and naming rights policy 4.34 to provide staff with the framework, protocols, and procedures necessary to facilitate opportunities for consistent and sustainable revenue generation from these types of business relationships. This is always also in front of council to endorse the policy and to repeal the existing park and facility advertising policy number 4.28 and sponsorship policy number 4.20.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by anybody? Councillor Carreras. Comments or questions, please? Councillor Carreras. You were, oh, come on. You were putting your card up.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Under the policy, under roles and responsibilities, the CAO can approve any agreement with a financial return to the city of 50,000 or less per year that does not involve the naming or renaming of a significant city asset. My question is, so someone could do 50,000. So what is an example of something that would be a sponsorship that's not naming or renaming of a significant city asset?
Mr. Hartman? Oh, no. Mr. Denton?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Councilor Carreras, through the chair. I will ask you to just please repeat. And
Yeah,
then
no
I'll
problem.
reframe.
It was a lot of word
Fantastic.
salad in there
Thank
too.
you.
Okay, so what I'm looking at is what would be considered a sponsorship of 50,000 or less or year? Actually, no, never mind. Regardless of the money, what is a sponsorship that wouldn't involve a naming or renaming of a significant city asset?
Through the chair to Councillor Carreras, a sponsorship that wouldn't include a significant asset could be anything from an event sponsorship. Again, we've recently introduced the Illuminate Maple Ridge. The sponsorship of that could be considered a non-asset related
Okay.
sponsorship. And then again, even within certain rooms or programs that we do have within existing assets, if there was a partner or sponsor that was interested in perhaps getting involved with that, we would certainly entertain an option for sponsorship for that.
Okay, so it could be like multiple years. So it could be a significant sponsorship with the CAO still approving it if it's 50,000 per year. So if you did multiple years, so does this include 50,000 or less per year? So if someone said for 5 years, I'm going to give you 40,000 or 30,000 or 20,000, it totals more than 50,000, but it's only under that threshold per year.
Correct.
So that would still be CAO approval without it
Correct,
coming to
yeah.
council.
Correct.
Okay. I'll see if anybody else has anything to say and then I'll go.
Thank you. I'm afraid to go forward. Any other comments or questions on this item? Not seeing any, so I'll go back to you, Councillor Carreras.
I'm curious if we want to put a limit on that, up to 200 and something. I don't know what be inappropriate. I just feel that if there's someone is donating a significant amount to the city, that it would be good for council to be aware and that to come to us. So I'm just trying to find the balance where it's still coming to us and still aware, and they're not going to go, I don't know, 50 years of $20,000. And that's a significant sponsorship and donation that doesn't come to city council.
Mr. Hartman.
Thank you, Your Worship. To yourself, members of council, this is not a donation policy. This is a marketing, sponsorship, advertising policy. And the rationale for staff putting the limits on the ability of the CEO's office on behalf of the corporation is that it needs to have that bridge between what is on the governance side and what is on the operational side. What you don't want to do in a marketing and advertising and sponsorship policy is politicize it. You want to deal with the brass tacks of the business on what is best, not only for the city, but also best for the assets that it's in its inventory. And so this is really where I think you get into a performance discussion with the CAO with respect to what those processes look like to make sure that it's in alignment. So I think the policy you have in front of you is very standard in the industry. The difference though is if someone's looking to donate, that's a different policy than what is considered to be advertising and sponsorship for functions. And again, from my office and my perspective, having been in this industry for most of my career, there's a fine line between what we want to approve without bringing council into a line of sight. But the least thing we want to do with the sponsorship and advertising discussions at the business level is to politicize those conversations, because it really comes down to how do you maximize the return on investment for taxpayers, and doing that on the operational side by providing some oversight for the governance is important. Hope that clarifies.
Yeah, so I'll just make a comment and then I'm good to leave it. So I guess it's the advertising and the marketing piece I'm not as worried about. It's the sponsorship and the naming piece, and I guess that's where I'm not. I'm supporting this policy, but I just want to say that I'm not 100% comfortable with naming of city assets and you know, I just want to make sure that we have a good policy in place and we have good checks and balances. And so that when we go down this path, and I get it's the path of the future, and I get other cities have this, including the provincial government. It just want to state makes me a little uncomfortable, but I am fine to support this. I just want to make sure the checks and balances are in place. And so that we are, yeah, the public is public. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for round two? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Denton.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Item 11.1 is Maple Ridge Temporary Use Permit 2022-457-RZ. Sorry, I forgot to mention that this item is from the public hearing of December 5th, 2023. So the temporary use permit is to permit temporary accessory off-street parking use at the subject property and will provide 14 additional parking stalls for an existing commercial building adjacent to the subject property.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Comments or questions? Being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Item 11.2 is application 2020-168-RZ. Multiple applications, 2021-323-RZ and 2021-244-RZ for properties located at 13960 232 Street, 13897, 13917, and 14027 Silver Valley Road, and 23348 141 Avenue to permit the future combined subdivision of 20 R1 zoned urban residential lots, 71 R2 medium density urban residential lots, and 13 street townhouse residential lots.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion? Moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Councillor Duick. Comments, questions here? Councillor Carreras.
I just have a quick question because this was all done by previous council. So it hasn't come to us. What exactly are eco clusters to conservation? What is, that term hasn't come across our desk yet.
Certainly, eco clusters are a designation in the Silver Valley area plan that allow for a range of lot sizes, even building types such as street townhouses or duplexes or single family lots to allow for flexibility in the layout of a development to fit in with basically the topography and the ecosystem. And then the rest of the area that is designated conservation is then protected in natural green space.
Okay, and so
clusters.
Can you just quickly walk me through exactly what is happening here? Because there's a couple of different things I want to make sure. So the eco clusters are being changed?
Yes, so the eco clusters are being adjusted based, the designations in the plan are very general 20 years ago. And when we go through the detailed assessment with the environment staff and the environmental consultants, there's adjustment of the conservation areas to reflect the actual ground truthing done by the environmental reports. In fact, the area that's designated for conservation is increasing through the ground truthing. So there's an net increase in area. And then the remaining area that's developable, that's not in creek corridors or steep slopes, is the eco cluster where the actual development is occurring.
Okay. So these are townhomes, medium density and high density single family homes.
No, there's several street townhouses on 236th or 232nd, and the rest are all single family lots.
Yeah, that's why I went there, townhouses, and then the single family lots are sort of smaller and larger.
There's 13
variety.
street townhouses.
Okay, but it's still maintaining, you said the conservation is actually increasing in this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Overall.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions because this had never come across our desk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The next item is 11.3 Maple Ridge Code of Conduct Bylaw number 7976-2023. The elected officials oath of office bylaw number 7975-2023. And the Maple Ridge Council Remuneration Bylaw number 7330-2017 and Amendment Bylaw number 7974-2023. As these bylaws are somewhat related but can stand on their own, I would recommend that council do each of these readings of the bylaws individually.
Okay, so I need a motion to move the first one. Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Carreras. Comments or questions? Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to clarify, we're looking at the Code of Conduct bylaw. That's
That
what's
is
on the
correct.
floor currently, just to clarify.
The remuneration we'll deal with afterwards. Is that correct? Sorry?
It's in the bylaw.
It is in the bylaw. That's why I'm
So
asking.
why are we separating it for?
Remuneration is in the Code of Conduct Bylaw. Just to talk about the Code of Conduct Bylaw right now.
We're just talking about the Code of Conduct bylaw. Okay. We're just talking about the Code of Conduct bylaw.
Yeah, there are 3 bylaws before us this evening, and yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So to the Code of Conduct bylaw, specifically the section dealing with remuneration, I'm not comfortable supporting it in its current form. I'll wait to hear what my colleagues say before I put a motion to either amend or strike certain clauses of it. However, I'll wait out of courtesy for the discussion. If not, I'm happy to move my motion now.
Okay, thank you. Just give me 1 second. I'm a little confused. Okay, that's why I was confused. Okay, so item 3 speaks to the amount of the right, that. So, okay, now I'm okay. Okay, we clear. So any other comments or questions on this item, please? Councillor Tan.
As I just want to make sure I completely understand this. So look at the remuneration portion of the Code of Conduct bylaw again. I'm just going to, so where the Integrity Commissioner finds that a council member breached this bylaw or submitted a complaint that was frivolous, vexatious, or made in bad faith, the remuneration to which the council member would have otherwise have been entitled shall be reduced in accordance with so on and so forth. So my question around this as a matter of clarification, if the Integrity Commissioner did not find the council member as guilty of having breached the bylaw or submitted a complaint that was frivolous or vexatious or made in bad faith, would it be possible for council to then vote against the Integrity Commissioner's finding? No.
I don't believe so, no. We would rely on the Integrity Commissioner to do the investigation and then come up with the recommendations. If they find that there is no breach, that's the end of that, correct? Yes, that's the end of that.
Thank you. And to make sure I understand, if the Integrity Commissioner, is council able to proceed with a resolution that is different from the Integrity Commissioner's recommendation in any way? So if the Integrity Commissioner found, let me try and draw a decision tree here. So if the Integrity Commissioner found not guilty of breach, council would not be able to provide any sort of
That's right.
Okay, consequence. Okay, if the Integrity Commissioner found the council member in some sort of breach, is council able to put forward a consequence that is different from what the Integrity Commissioner recommends?
That's a good question. So the integrity commissioner would list the potential consequences to that. It would come to council and we would vote on that. So you're asking, can we deviate from
That's right.
what the integrity commissioner is deeming to be the lack of a
Appropriate
better word,
consequence.
the appropriate consequences? That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that.
To yourself and members of council, so the integrity commissioner is there as the independent voice and perspective. Council always has the ability to deviate. However, you don't have the ability to deviate within the confines of your bylaw. So depending what the findings of the integrity commissioner are, you're still ground by the requirements in your bylaw, regardless if council wants to deviate. You're still required to stay within the lane of your bylaw.
I see. So if the integrity commissioner were to find someone guilty of X breach and recommended Y consequence, council would still be able to enact Z, A, or B consequence as long as Z, A, or B options were within the bylaw.
As long as it's contained in the bylaw, based on the findings of the integrity commissioner, and it's within the lane of the bylaw, council has some ability, because it's a recommendation coming from the integrity commissioner. However, it needs to conform, whatever council decides, it needs to conform to the bylaw.
And okay, and just to make sure I understand, conforms to bylaw, because the bylaw, to my understanding, and it's a long package, so I can be missing something here. The bylaw doesn't spell out particularly what consequences available for what breach, because there's a whole plethora of breaches. So there are a number of potential consequences listed in the bylaw, but it would be up to council to decide which consequence is meted out.
I just wanted to say, with respect to the remuneration piece, that would not be. The bylaw states that if they are found to have done a breach, they will, or they shall be have the reduced remuneration at the set rate in the bylaw. So that is one that you would not have flexibility on.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Duick? Okay, Councillor Duick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at page 20. I'm just going back there. So on page 20 under 81, it says the council remuneration bylaw 2154 as amended from time to time. And that doesn't match with council remuneration bylaw 7330.
7330 is the amendment bylaw,
right,
to 2154.
Okay, so if I go down to that, it doesn't say that. So it says bylaw number 7974. And then in there, 7330, 2017. So I'm not sure where the bylaw 2154 comes from.
You are correct. I'm
And
afraid I
then-
can't speak to that. I was not.
Okay, so as long as we know 7974 is the correct bylaw number, then we need to ensure that that's correct in the Code of Conduct section, page 20, that it says 7974, correct?
Yeah, I would suggest that the bylaw number be taken out of the Code of Conduct and just say in accordance with council remuneration bylaw as amended from time to time.
Right, okay, so that's the one. And then the elected oath of office bylaw 7975 is that Schedule A, which is on page 24. Because it doesn't have a bylaw number on it, so that's.
The bylaw starts on the page before that, so page 23. Yeah,
Okay,
page
yeah,
23
I
is the
see it.
bylaw, and the
Gotcha.
oath of office is Schedule A to the bylaw.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, so because I don't really know what the concerns are on the remuneration, I fully support this. I think the key thing here that council discussed was having an independent person doing the investigation should it be necessary. I always preface my comments that if we all act accordingly, we won't need to go down this route. So if we all act professionally and respect our bylaws, hopefully we'll never have to deal with this. But should we have to, I think it's all a piece of what council needs to have to consider. Most times people say they apologize. They say, it was an error on my part. Please accept my apologies. That would, from my perspective, that would be the end of it, depending on the situation. But there are examples throughout the Lower Mainland where that's not been the case. And there has been examples where people weren't able to do part of their duties as a counselor. So I think it needs to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carreras.
Thanks. I feel like we've discussed this a few times lately.
We're only on third reading, so
I know,
fourth
but I
reading to
feel
come.
like it's just, so the one piece that, we talked about remuneration on page 20, right? Page 20, 81, but it's 82 that I like to go to, where it says, notwithstanding section 80, the remuneration of a council member shall not be reduced if the integrity commissioner makes a finding that council member took all reasonable steps to prevent a breach. A breach was trivial or inadvertent, or the breach was because of an error in judgment made in good faith. So I think if the integrity commission said, look, we found they didn't do this on purpose, it was an accident, they apologize, we wouldn't even be able to actually, even if it wasn't a recommendation per this policy, we wouldn't be able to actually make a decision to implement this remuneration piece, because if the integrity commissioner, who's the third piece, said, no, this was by accident. So when I look at this remuneration, it means that you purposefully took a closed document, shared it with someone for political purposes, whatever, I don't care. Like, this was some intent behind this to invoke the remuneration. And if the remuneration gives someone pause to not release private information that we've all taken an oath to, I mean, I get the inadvertent piece, but this removes that. This is like, I took a document and I gave it to someone because I wasn't happy with something. And I support, and if, like I said, the remuneration gives them pause and they don't do it, happy to have it in there. And if it doesn't give them pause, then it shouldn't be impacted by it.
Okay.
Because there could be significant financial impacts to the city.
Okay, still on first round. I haven't forgotten you. Okay, so then I will throw my 2 cents on this one. Here's what guides me. I look around the province. I look around the country. Some of the challenges that councils are having. Everybody's suing everybody. Everybody's charging everybody with everything. If you don't have a strong, solid policy in place, that's what happens, because it becomes open for interpretation, and in some cases it gets weaponized. The key for me is having that integrity commissioner. I don't want to be making those decisions. I shouldn't be making those decisions because I got elected just like everybody else around this table. So, this could apply. That's the whole point of having rules and policies and procedures in place, is to avoid the nastiness that goes on. And when I look around, the table, everybody's doing good. Everybody's fine. Everybody's respectful of each other today. Who knows what happens a year from now? But we don't want to put ourselves, I wouldn't want to put ourselves in a position where, if we don't have the integrity commissioner, that I'm going to go have a conversation with the CAO and say, oh my God, what are we going to do here? I don't want to have to do that. I don't believe anybody wants me to be in that position. That's why it's so integral to have the integrity commissioner. And what follows with the integrity commissioner is, it has to have teeth. If it doesn't have teeth, then what's the point of it? And that's the way that I look at it. And for me, that's why I would support this as is. That's my 2 cents on that. Round two.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, speaking to page 19, under clause 79, both F and J, limitations on access to certain city facilities, equipment, or systems, so long as those limitations do not unduly limit the ability of a council member to perform their council duties. And the other one is any other sanctions recommended by the Integrity Commissioner, so long as the sanctions are within the authority of council. The vagueness of the language there, any other sanctions, is not sitting well with me. Not to mention, of course, any limitations to access that are would ultimately take away from councillors being able to carry out their duties. I've spoken against this bylaw since its inception because of the fact that I can see it easily being weaponized, and it has been. And while I don't disagree with having a third-party integrity commissioner, I disagree with the remedies that are proposed here, and I've highlighted those two. Of course, on page 20, under remuneration, when whatever the bylaw number is, be it 2154 or 7974, the fact that it's as amended from time to time. What is from time to time? Again, the language is so vague that it leaves it open to interpretation. We're not updating on a regular basis, or I would be more comfortable if we ended that sentence with as amended. It's not just semantics, it actually drives, again, into the policy. Lastly, Mr. Chair, the on page 21, under reimbursement of costs, it stipulates that a council member may make a request to council for the reimbursement of costs of legal advice and representation. I believe that should be automatic, especially in the case of a councillor not being found to have done anything wrong. Secondly, at the bottom, under letter D, says the amount claimed does not exceed $10,000. That tells people around the table who would be in this position and possibly having to answer to this bylaw that if the fight is going to cost you more than $10,000, it's not worth the fight. So you're taking away someone's right to stand up for what they believe to be true and real in favor of a dollar amount. So I would move to strike both D, so 87D, or 87 it's in its entirety, because really I see it as redundant and doesn't give us anything, as well as 79F and J.
Madam Clerk, you wanted to speak to something?
If it's going to be struck, that's one thing, but I just wanted to say that to change the wording to simply amend rather than amend from time to time changes the intent. And I think would also create confusion. Is it as amended as of the date of this bylaw? Is it as amended at the time that you're looking at it? I think that does create some confusion, and the time to time is a very standard phrase used in most bylaws.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. If it's standard, then I guess I will have to live with it.
So
still moving to strike 79F and J, and 87 it's in its entirety.
are we able to put those up on the screen? No, okay. Okay, so we have a motion to strike. Just repeat that again for me, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Clause 79, F and J, as well as clause 87 in its entirety.
87. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for to make some amendments. Can I get a seconder for that motion? Councillor Tan. Okay, now we'll talk about that motion. Sorry? You want to deal with them separately?
The striking of the.
Yeah, I'd like to deal with section 79 and then section 87 separately. I think they're very, very different motions and different debate. And I think that we should deal with them individually. So it's just a motion to sever.
Okay.
Motion to sever?
Motion to sever?
Mhm.
Okay, So we have a motion to sever. Can I get a seconder for that? Moved by, seconded by Counselor Dewick. So we're going to move to the first one, which is 79 F and J. Is that correct? We're good? Okay, we're going to speak to that. Counselor Dewick.
Sorry, Mr. Chair,
Sorry.
do we need to vote on the severance first?
Oh, sorry. Can I get a? Sorry. Follow
I
the
know it's
bouncing ball here.
complicated as well. We've got three
Okay,
layers.
so
of
we
it.
have a mover and a seconder for item 79 F and J. Well, we have to debate it first before we vote on it, no? Do we need to? No, so right now we're gonna debate number 70, or I don't know, now I'm confused here.
Sorry.
Do I need to do? Because we have a mover and a seconder for the first one. Do we need to vote on that first or
Yes.
debate it first?
Well, you can debate separating it.
Okay, so that's what we're doing right now. We're debating, we've moved it and seconded. Is there any debate on severing it? Seeing none, although in favor of severing, it is unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we will debate item 79 F and J. Counselor Dewick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll pick my words carefully because of my previous experience, but I don't support taking out F and J because there are situations that potentially you would need to restrict a counselor's ability to roam around City Hall. What this doesn't say that they can't have access to the building to perform their duties. But an example would be if I did something wrong, I'll use me as an example. If I was found to be bullying and harassing staff, I could have my access card taken away from me so that I can only have access on council days and only to certain rooms. So that's an example. So I still have access to complete and undertake my duties. What I don't have is free access to the entire building.
So
So
you would
that's an example.
still, and then just for clarification, you would still have access to your email and you would still have
100%,
access to your phones?
100%.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank
Comments, okay. Counselor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do read limitations on access to certain city facilities, equipment, or systems. That's equipment. So access to email, access to information, access to City Hall, as well as systems.
Do we have a
Sorry,
response? to that?
I would suggest that it says as long as those limitations don't unduly limit the ability. I would suggest that your ability requires you to have access to your email. That's how we distribute agendas and everything. So I don't think that is one that would fall under that clause.
Thank you for that clarification. And through you, Mr. Chair, when we're taking away equipment and systems, that's our email access. What other systems do we have access to other than Prime Gov to download the agendas, Outlook to receive and send our emails? And of course, as stipulated at the beginning of the term, that the city would like us to use their equipment for the cybersecurity side of it.
So I understand it with the way that you've read it, that we cannot take away your ability to do your elected, what you are elected to do. However, in the case of Counselor Dewick, if you're roaming the halls and harassing and bullying, yes, you can be denied access to the halls and so on and so forth, and just be allowed to come to council, because we can't take that right away from you. You are an elected official.
So, Mr. Chair, if I'm only allowed to attend council meetings, but yet my equipment and my systems access is limited. I don't have access to the agenda. I don't have access to city equipment that I can otherwise use for email and to carry out the duties that I'm elected to do.
So, sorry, could you repeat that clause again, please?
Yes, the limitations do not unduly limit the ability of the council member to perform their duties. So access to email, phones, things that you are required to have. So you can talk to your constituents, you can receive council email. That's how we distribute any correspondence that comes into mayor and council. Those would not, under this clause, be allowed to be taken away from that council member.
But you wouldn't be allowed to use a company vehicle.
We
That
don't
is
use
something
company
that council could consider. These are remedies that can be imposed by council. So they can pick and choose from those, and they could make very specific requirements of which city facilities, as Councillor Duick mentioned, if there was one particular staff member that there had been an issue with, you could just restrict that part of the building, the entire building.
Okay, all right.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like clarification on what equipment and systems then would not unduly limit the ability of a councillor to carry out their duties.
I can't give you that answer. I don't know what that answer is. I mean, I think when we're looking at it's trying to address a catch-all of everything. You're not going to start to list everything down in there. I'm not here to defend this motion at all, right? I'm trying to bring clarity to it. I don't know of a specific issue where, I mean, the bylaw was brought up and created with the help of a third party, correct? Yes. So they obviously put it in there for a reason. So while I can't think of a thing that comes to my mind is a corporate vehicle, because you could right now, if you wanted to, you could go to the CAO and say, can I borrow this vehicle to drive to wherever, Chilliwack for a committee meeting? You could ask for that, correct?
Seriously, I never knew.
Well, why not?
Now I do.
Why not? Right? So that is one example that comes to my mind, right?
Okay.
I don't have all of the examples. I don't, I
No,
can't speak to
and
that.
again,
I'm trying to, I'm
yeah,
trying to give you that.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Mr. Chair. My reason for digging into this is the way I look at it is equipment and systems means the phone, the tablet, and the Outlook, and like I said, PrimeGov. Those are the equipment and systems that I'm looking at. I never knew that I can borrow a car and go to a committee meeting.
Okay, so you asked for an example. I gave you an example. Okay, I don't want to have a debate back and forth because I want to include all of council. Did you have something to add to that,
I
please?
thought of an example of a system, and I don't know if council has access to it now, but could in the future, and that is our internal intranet. Yeah, so that could be a system that could be restricted for whatever reason. I don't know that if it's required for you to do your job. I don't think that it is. It's just information sharing, but that is a system that you could technically be removed from. Just as an example.
So there you've got a couple of examples, but just, we've had that. I'm going to open it up again to Councillor Carreras.
So I'm in support of leaving this one in here because I can think of some IT breach policies that would limit your ability to use all our systems, including the internet, Teams, things like that. You can still do your job because if you do not have a limit, if you are limited based on your violation, I can think you'd only have this recommendation if it was like a cyber something IT related breach. You breach the IT policy is you could have a paper copy of your agenda. So you're still able to do, but you wouldn't be able to access. So I'll tell you why I leave it in there, because if it's one of those breaches, maybe that's what makes sense to limit the access and you can still do your job. We're not required to have phones either as part of our job. I'm not saying we can't have a phone, but it's not a requirement of our job to have a city phone.
Mr. Hartman.
Thank you, Worship. The purpose of the bylaw is to allow council flexibility based on the findings from an integrity commissioner, based on a set of contexts that we don't have. So with all due respect, we could sit here for hours finding scenarios. The intention of F and J is to ensure that council has the flexibility, depending on a specific incident, to deal with the parameters to limit the exposure of liability on the corporation, given the facts of a certain situation. And so I would caution council with getting too far into wordsmithing when we've looked at what is best case practices for this discussion. We've had outside legal and we've compared this to other code of conducts within the industry. And the ability for council, when they make their ultimate decision based on the information coming from an integrity commissioner based on a specific context, allows council to have this type of debate when the issue actually occurs. Because you're going to be able to, at that time, have the conversation amongst yourselves with what exactly does the individual counselor that's been affected need in order to physically do their job. And so I'd rather have that conversation with you when there's an actual context involved than necessarily trying to set all of the parameters for every universal application. Or was it intended to be the ability of the integrity commissioner to provide a set of recommendations to council on a specific incident? I hope that's helpful.
And again, this is not something council, as Mr. Hartman has correctly pointed out, this is a third party that worked to get this together. Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Mayor. I take this conversation very seriously. I take it very seriously for the reason that, I think we're debating this, in some ways, not necessarily for ourselves, but for future iterations of council and for future members. So I take this responsibility incredibly seriously. And so I actually do really appreciate the fulsome, as long as it's at the end of a long day, but I really do appreciate the fulsome conversation that we're having on this topic. So as I sit here and I think, what is the mindset I'm working with here? And the mindset is I am looking to prevent, I think I won't put words in Councillor Youssef's mouth, but what I am looking to do here is prevent any sort of, in the future, any sort of possibility where there is any other motivation around from council colleagues around the table, anything aside from ensuring the well-behaved conduct of all of the council members, any other motivation. I am looking to remove the possibility of that sort of outside influence. And, I really take Mr. Hartman's point very seriously, where this was crafted by legal counsel. I certainly do not have a law degree around the table. And it is also my job as a council member to very carefully study the recommendations provided by legal counsel. So here we are in some ways wordsmithing, but I think it's a very important, again, it's a very important discussion we're having. So I think I'm looking specifically at F and J, and I'm also looking at 87, but that's a later conversation. And so given that mindset that I have, I am very happy to actually dive deep into this conversation. So, I'm hearing the conversation about F in particular, and I feel comforted by, particularly what the clerk said, where Madam Clerk said, where, this does not allow for removal of our phones or removal of Outlook or PrimeGov, which I just deem to be an essential part of my job. You cannot communicate with your constituents with your email or your phone. Yeah. So I am, and I also hear what Councillor Duick said, where there are situations where you do want to restrict access to that you may want to restrict access to certain parts of the building. And also here, you don't want to find all the things, but ultimately what I'm trying to do is prevent sort of consequences that we do not necessarily want. So I think, so I am, because of those things, I am nervous about point J, which any other sanction, this very open-ended way, any other sanction that can be recommended by an integrity commissioner. And with all due respect to the integrity commissioner, they are not a politician. They don't earn an elected representative, and there's much nuance going on here. And so, as I weigh sort of both the balance of being too prescriptive and overly general about this, I think the threshold I am comfortable setting is I do want to leave F in here, and I am interested in seeing J removed. So it's not in the interest of further complicating the topic, but an interest of finding a threshold that I am personally comfortable with, that I think is a responsible use of my role here. I would like to move to sever F and J and vote on them separately.
And I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. The motion to separate is not debatable.
Well, there you go, but we just finished debating it. So. Yeah. Yeah.
Voted on it.
Mhm.
Debating on the motion. We voted to sever. Second, or we vote on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm saying, because
Yeah.
the original motion to sever is non-debatable.
Right.
Right, so, but we've already gone there, so now we have another motion to sever F and J. So do I have a sorry?
There was no debate. I told you you could, but nobody chose to respond. It was just the motion to sever, which passed unanimously.
Okay,
And then it was
debated.
this one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, can we, there's a motion to sever F and J. But I don't want to say that too fast. It doesn't sound very good. So we're going to vote on the motion to sever F and J. We got a mover and we have a seconder. Okay, so we have now severed F and J. So open it up the floor to F and, so we're doing F first.
F first. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, yes. Okay, so,
Speaking to F
no, we have to vote first.
first.
First
Okay.
was separate.
Separated.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to separate F and J.
Yeah.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so motion to sever
Carries.
is carries. Okay, all right. Okay, Councillor Youssef on
F.
F.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, I'd like to point out that 79 stipulates that remedies that may be imposed by council. So these are remedies that can be imposed by council. Not so much that the Integrity Commission, as was said earlier, would say you should limit access. This is our choice around the table. And as my colleague has so eloquently put it, none of us have a law degree. None of us have the ability to be a judge, jury, and executioner in this case to be able to limit other people's access or equipment. So therefore, I still stand by the fact that this is something that I'm fearful of. However, having heard the conversation, that it would not be to the point of limiting one's ability to do their work and carry out their duties, I can live with F remaining. I'll stop there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Councillor Duick, follow the bouncing ball.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although it says imposed by council, it's based on the Integrity Commissioner's recommendations and the Integrity Commissioner could pick one, two, or all of these for council's consideration.
Okay. Any? Oh, sorry, I saw a yellow card. But we got to go around. Anybody else wants to speak to F? Seeing none, we'll go to the second round. Do you want to speak to that again?
Yes, Mr. Chair. While I take your point very much understood, we have voted against staff recommendations. We have voted against recommendations that are before us in the past. So just because the Integrity Commissioner would recommend one or the other doesn't mean that council still does not have the ability to limit one's access to facilities, equipment, and systems. And this is where it gets political. And that's my fear, that if it was entirely up to the Integrity Commissioner and their recommendations, that would be much more palatable to me than council itself making that decision. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I will speak to that. At the end of the day, a third-party integrity commissioner is an integrity commissioner. It is not up to us to make that decision. When you are hiring an integrity commissioner, it's not political. This is legal stuff. So at the end of the day, if the integrity commissioner, because it comes down to this, if the integrity commissioner has investigated and found breach of conduct, there's no if, and, or but. They have found breach of conduct. So the only question is what happens next. No, I don't see anybody telling me no. So by separating things, it might be a little bit easier to look at it in different ways, but they're all tied together for a reason. And that's the point of having an integrity commissioner. So again, I based on the conversation we've been having, I'm still going to support that as is. Okay. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak to this.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on F.
On the,
Severing us.
no, not severing. Yeah.
Sever is the language,
Thank you.
severing section 79F.
Okay, just to be clear, if the motion carries, F stays or F goes?
F goes.
If the motion carries, F goes. If the motion fails, F stays. Whew. All those in favor? All those opposed? And motion fails? Fails, okay. F stays, okay. Okay, now we're gonna move on to J. And, sorry, does Councillor Youssef get to speak to it first? If it's his motion or no?
Yes.
Okay, so, Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Much as Councillor Tan has alluded to earlier, it is rather vague and it says any other sanctions recommended. Again, having seen council vote against certain recommendations and vote in favor of others, it's too loose, and I don't believe that any other sanctions is good legal language to begin with. Looking at the remainder of clause number 79, there are plenty of remedies there to add any other sanctions. And I apologize if I'm coming across as facetious, but would 50 push-ups be within the realm of possibilities? Because it says any other sanctions recommended by the Integrity Commissioner. And again, as it was pointed out earlier, the Integrity Commissioner does not fully comprehend and digest the role that we carry out and our duties and what we have to go through in order to be in these seats. So therefore, I'm still in favor of striking J. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dewick, followed by Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to continue to support Jay, and the reason being is the whole purpose of an integrity commissioner is to rely on their professional advice and recommendations and investigation skills, and they're going to make recommendations. And the reason I support it is I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but given this was vetted through legal, given there must be some examples that come to mind for this language to be there. Maybe not specifically in Maple Ridge, but you know, integrity commissioners work elsewhere in the Lower Mainland. So there must be some examples to recommend this particular section.
Thank you. Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Chair. I agree that this is serious work and this is important work, and I am glad that we're doing it, even as the words blur in front of me. But I did just want to say that I think, you know, our whole intent with this was to get as much of this work out to an independent third party, a non-elected third party that is qualified to do this work in a way that we are not internally. It's likely not perfect, but I think it's better, and it's moving along this direction that we're going to rely on this outside guidance. And I do take seriously the comments of my colleagues that have more experience. My perspective is that while this wording is, you know, somewhat vague, any other sanction, I think that's in there because we cannot predict every single thing that could be found to be a breach. And there needs to be some way to address something that is not on a list of potential breaches. And, you know, it is limited by the later part of the clause that the sanction needs to be within the authority of council, which certainly does limit it. So I do support this staying in. I think we need to look at this as a whole. And so for that reason, I support it staying in as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers to J? Seeing none. Sorry, is that? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, round two.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I'm looking at the top of the clause where it says these remedies may be imposed by council based on recommendation from a third party. So while the third party makes the recommendation, these would be imposed by council, by a political entity, by politicians who have run campaigns possibly against one another. And this is my fear as well, as Councillor Tan has expressed, that while we are all smiles and nods around the table right now, the next council may not be. And my fear is that something like this, as vague as this language is, to be imposed by council can easily be weaponized to marginalize and effectively render one of our members or more than one of members of council unable to perform their duties. Going back to J in particular, with any other sanctions recommended by the Integrity Commission. Again, it's a recommendation, does not stipulate that if the Integrity Commissioner gives a particular remedy, that it will be followed. Council, as a group of politically inclined individuals, has the ability to tighten those screws or loosen them up. And again, my fear is that this will be weaponized if or when the wrong circumstances present themselves. Hence, my drive to eliminate J, because of the fact that it is vague, because of the fact that we are politically inclined around the table, and that it may very well become a tool to be used not so much for good by future councils or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any takers for round two? Seeing none, I'm just going to reiterate my same, sorry, Councillor Tan.
Thanks, Mayor. I am following the discussion closely, and I note that in my opinion, that there is no way to sort of prevent all the possibilities here. You know, we are in these there's you know, in the tree of humankind, no tree grows straight because we're all crooked, you know. And I think that so I'm really trying to limit I'm trying to limit the things that can go wrong here. And I'll say that I find Councillor Youssef's argument persuasive. We are political animals, and when I say we, I mean future iterations of council. And so I do want to limit what can be done by folks who do have political motivations around the table. You know, I note that when in legal cases, juries are screened for any sort of conflict of interest, any possible conflict of interest. And I think that at the end of the day, I certainly understand that we try to have an independent commissioner here in order to limit that sort of political influence and outside influence. But at the end of the day, I'm going to err on the side of what I see as caution. And I'm going to vote to take out J. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to say again, I think the key point that's we have to keep going back to, the Integrity Commissioner determines if there is a breach, and then it moves forward from there, right? If there's no breach, that's it. But if there's a breach, and it could be many different types of breaches, so we don't know. So, okay, all right. Seeing no other comments on this, so if you vote in favor, J goes. And if you vote against, J stays. All those in favor, all those opposed, motion is defeated and J stays. I feel like this is an episode of Men in Black. What? The motion with the spring motion. What? The motion is defeated. Yeah, I'm against it. Yeah. I don't know where my cards are. Now back to the main motion of
No,
79.
we're on Section
Mr. Chair, we still
87.
have 87. Clause 87 was also, that was the first severance, sorry.
Okay, by severing, we dealt with them individually. So 79 is done.
No, 87. 87 was also part of my initial
79
motion.
is done.
Severed.
It's done.
79 is that.
79 is done. Now we're moving to 87. Okay. I believe we still need a motion to move 87. No,
No,
no, we don't need that. Okay, so I'll open that up for speakers. Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My reason for wanting to strike clause 87 is one, I believe that the costs of legal advice and representation should be automatically reimbursed to the member, especially if they are not found to have any wrongdoing. Secondly, under letter D, where it limits the amount to $10,000, again, speaking to that, that tells a member of council that if their truth and what they believe in their heart of hearts and their conviction is going to cost them more than $10,000, that the fight is not going to be worth it. So that takes away from one's truth and convictions in favor of a dollar amount, not to mention, of course, that after a member of council has undergone the investigation and the entire process, they still have to come back to council to request a reimbursement. The very same council that may have wanted or possibly imposed remedies against them. So in my world, that's a clear conflict, that if I'm seeing or judging that a member of council has conducted themselves in a manner that is unbecoming, to then be told that I was wrong, and in fact, they have not conducted themselves in that manner, to try to go back and vote in favor of reimbursing them for their legal costs, I think there would be a lot of personality involved in there. And again, it presents a clear conflict if we're, I hate to repeat this, but if it's judge, jury, and executioner, but ultimately that's what this is reading as. And of course, adding the layer of the $10,000, which in legal terms, that's nothing.
Okay, I just want to ask process in this. Integrity Commissioner does the investigation. At that point, you're not incurring any costs. Is that correct? Because they're doing their investigation before they present their findings. It's possible, right? Then they present, they said, yes, you're in breach. Okay. Does council adapt?
You're ahead of yourself, your worship.
I'm ahead of myself. Okay.
The section about reimbursement of costs, section 87, and I'll read it out. A council member may make a request to council for reimbursement of the costs of legal advice and representation in responding to the formal complaint process outlined in this bylaw. If appropriate, after considering all of the circumstances, council may resolve to reimburse legal fees reasonably incurred by a council member, provided that all of the following are met. A, Section 740 of the Local Government Act authorizes the indemnification. B, the council member has not previously been found to have breached the code. C, council in its sole discretion has agreed to indemnify the member for the cost of legal advice and representation in responding to the formal complaint process. And D, the amount claimed does not exceed $10,000.
All right. So thank you for that clarification. Okay. I've said what I needed to say. Speakers? Seeing none. Sorry, Councillor Tan.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate it. We are at our 12-hour mark now. So I think that, I think I understand, I believe I understand what Councillor Youssef is putting on the floor here, that, I think all of us will agree that our reputation is worth more than $10,000, and that, so if one is to find oneself in position to make a legal claim, to conduct a legal process, one wouldn't want to be restricted by a $10,000 limit. I am going to say that I'm not entirely clear that striking all of 87 would sort of achieve that purpose. I think that increasing the amount in D would probably, or striking D in 87D in particular, would probably achieve the purpose, better achieve the purpose. But I also take the agreement. I also appreciate that there's a lot of mays in here. A council member may make a request. So taking 87 out wouldn't stop a council member from making a request, but it would take out the amount limit. So because of that, I'm willing to support taking out 87. And
So
again, I am willing to support taking out all of 87, which is what is on the
Okay.
floor, because of that particular point about the amount claimed not exceeding $10,000 being a sticky point. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Dewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak to it, but I feel I have to. If we take it out, then there's no consideration at all. Number one. Number two, if a council member is previously breached, as an elected official that's responsible for the tax dollars of our citizens, I would not be in favor of authorizing their legal costs if they had already been found of a breach before. So to me, it needs to stay because it provides some parameters, and it does provide the flexibility for somebody to seek legal counsel as to whether or not responding to the complaint, how they respond to the complaint, their reputation, all those things. And if that can't be accomplished within $10,000, then we have a serious breach on our hands and a serious matter that council has to consider. So if we take it out, there's no consideration for legal costs at all.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on this item? Okay, we'll go to round two. Counselor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, in today's world, to get a lawyer to put a contract together, that's about $10,000. To go any further than that would exceed that amount significantly. Secondly, I believe, and I read this the way it is, that if, when we're talking about has been not previously been found to have breached, this is dealing with the Integrity Commissioner's current investigation, not that there was an incident prior and this is the second incident. We're still on the first incident where the member has not previously been found to have breached. And I'm seeing nods around the table. So it's not that this is the second strike, this is at the first strike. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, second round. Seeing none, I will call the question. And just for clarification, if you vote in favor, it stays. No.
No, it goes.
Okay, okay. Okay, so if you vote in favor, 87's out the door. It's too bad it wasn't 86, because then you could 86 it. If you vote against it, it stays. Okay. All those in favor? And all those opposed? Motion is defeated 4-2. Did I get that right? Okay. Okay, now what?
Now we're back to the main motion that the bylaw be given first, second, and third reading.
Counselor Dewitt?
So I only reference page 20 again, and if we take out the actual bylaw number as the clerk had mentioned, just say council remuneration, that way there's no confusion. So on page 20 in the actual bylaw.
Okay.
It says under 81B, says reduced in accordance with council remuneration bylaw number 2154. So I'm saying take out number 2154.
We'll clean that up. Okay, so now we've already moved this motion, this item.
Well, I'm moving that, remove
She's
that
moving an
number.
amendment to
Okay.
strike number 2154.
All right, moved, seconded. Comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion unanimously carried. Thank you very much.
Now back to first, second, and third
Jeez.
reading.
First, second, third reading. Okay, that's moved. Right? Okay, any comments, questions on that one? Seeing, oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was reaching for all the cards at once. I'll be brief. Again, I see this council conduct bylaw as a dangerous tool in the wrong hands that can easily be weaponized to sideline and marginalize voices around the table if it falls into the wrong hands. I understand and appreciate that. Again, we're all smiles and nods around the table now, but I've seen it turn on a dime. So therefore, I cannot support it in its current form. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
okay. Councillor Duick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm going to give the opposite opinion. The reason I'm going to support this is I've heard this language time and time again in the previous council about weaponizing, politicizing, wrong hands. That's why this council decided to go to an integrity commissioner to take all that away, take it off of the mayor's and the CAO's responsibilities and outsource it to an independent professional body. So that's why I think it's important that we support it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, all those, okay, in favor of the bylaw, all those in favor of the bylaw, motion carries 6-1. Okay. 5-1. Oh, gosh. Next item. What is?
Now this is the vote on the elected oath of office bylaw number 7975, 2023 for first, second, and third reading.
Okay, can I get a motion to move this item, please? Moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Carreras. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Maple Ridge Council Remuneration Bylaw number 7330-2017, Amendment Bylaw number 7974-2023 be given first, second, and third reading.
Can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Duick. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Where are we now?
Where are we now? Next item is
11.5.
11.4.
Four.
Maple
sorry.
Ridge 150. And the recommendation is asking for council to approve $350,000 from accumulated surplus for the Maple Ridge 150 celebration on September 14th, 2024.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve this item, please? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Did you order food?
No, it's diabetes.
Oh, okay. Comments, questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is 11.5, Subcommittee to the Corporate Governance and Human Resources Committee to form a subcommittee to specifically develop, review, and make recommendations to council on intergovernmental resolutions proposed to be forwarded to the FCM, LMLGA, and UBCM.
Okay, do we have that recommendation on the screen?
Sorry.
Can I get a motion to move this item? Moved by Councillor Carrera, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Comments, question, Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, when the members of this subcommittee are reviewing the recommendations that are put forward by members, do they have the authority to eliminate or strike certain motions that, or sorry, certain resolutions that they may or may not agree with? Or is it that they're looking at the formatting of them and the language ultimately and the mechanics of the resolution rather than the spirit of resolutions?
So the intent is last year, we were at a mad scramble to get this done. The intent of this is to pull together 3 members of council to get together and come up with whatever resolution they deem fit. They can wordsmith it. They would have Katerina working with them. And then when they're finished their work, they would present that to council for to be able to vote on that. So rather than having individuals coming up and we're all trying to wordsmith at the same time on the floor, trying to be proactive here by pulling together a subcommittee who can come up with good recommendations for LMLGA. I think FCM, we've passed the deadline. So it'll just be LMLGA and UBCM.
Okay, I just want to make sure that ultimately the subcommittee doesn't serve as a gatekeeper for resolutions that they may not agree with. Rather, they're working on the mechanics of presented resolutions and then they come back to council as a whole for a vote.
The subcommittee will work as a group to come up with resolutions, whatever they might be. I have no idea.
So the subcommittee comes up with resolutions, but individual members of council who are not on the subcommittee are not able to put forward resolutions?
I think you're always able to put forward to committee, to council. The goal here is to work as a group to come up with something that everybody can agree with on that subcommittee and then present to council.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand this so as to really solidify my vote. We all put together our individual resolutions that we'd like to see that are then presented to the subcommittee to work on and put together in a more concise manner. And then those resolutions would come back to council to vote on whether they proceed or not, or the subcommittee selects which resolutions are put forward by council.
You're okay. I'm gonna let
I'm sorry, I don't have the
speak to it.
terms of reference in front of me, but I believe that the intent that we talked about when putting the terms of reference together was to have council members submit their resolutions. The committee would consider it, perhaps wordsmith it to help improve it and make sure that it was meeting the goals. I would suggest that should they not endorse one, that council member could still bring it forward at that time as an individual motion.
The goal here is to come up with some well thought out resolutions. It's not to silence anybody. It's to come up with some well thought out resolutions, and councillors can still present their own. Nobody's saying you can't submit your own, but the goal here is to come together as a subcommittee to work on some resolutions and then present them to council. Nobody's silencing anybody here. It's about coming up with something that fits whatever narrative that subcommittee will present to us. And if a member wants to submit their own resolution, of course, they're always able to do that. This is the idea of this, to come up with good solutions, good, well-written solutions. And that's why you have Katerina on there to help wordsmith them, to help go through some of the other recommendations. There's hundreds and hundreds of resolutions that are submitted. So, there's a lot of work that has to do there. So rather than it falling on one person, I'm suggesting that it falls on 3 people. Yes.
Just to help clarify to yourself, members of council, the recommendations coming out of the subcommittee would be presented to council, and it's council as a whole that would ratify those, and that is ultimately what would be on official record, and that would be submitted to LGMLA. This is a working group on a subcommittee that would send its recommendations back to this board for final ratification and approval.
Thank you for that. And that was my drive, is to ensure that the subcommittee does not serve as a filter, if you will, rather that, as you said, they would wordsmith and streamline the resolutions. If there's the ability to combine certain resolutions to meet the language that's required, then that I can live with. But if it was to serve as a filter and then be able to, if for lack of a better word, pick and choose which resolutions get advanced, then that would be problematic.
Again, it's a working committee, a working subcommittee.
Perfect. As long as Mr. Hartman says, the entirety of council would get to vote on which resolutions proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Carreras. Councillor Duick.
Okay, so this is how I see it. This is how I read it and see it, is that, yes, they all come back, but my understanding of the committee is they would develop and work on resolutions to submit to LMLGA and UBCM based on our strategic plan and challenges that we saw throughout the year. And then if others were to submit them, it would come through the committee as well. But I think, okay, as long as they come to us in a complete way to work through them and not just something that's unworkable and we don't understand. But then would the committee make recommendations? Like everything would still go to council to vote, but would we make, as in every other body, would be a recommendation and a non-recommendation towards, based on our strategic plan and the issues facing council? The goal is to make sure that we're making resolutions that are strategic to what we've decided on as the priorities of the day, of all of us debated that. So
Yes, but having said that, again, we're not silencing anybody. If
no, but we can
somebody
still
wants
make a
to-
recommendation.
Yes.
We recommend support of this, or we have no recommendation on this, like every other resolutions committee does.
Yes.
Yeah, so if it doesn't meet our sort of strategic plan or what we see as an issue locally, we could make a decision on non-recommendation, and the
Well-
council would still do whatever they want
Yeah,
with it.
council will still do whatever they want. If they want to support it, they support it. Last year, we didn't all agree on the recommendations coming forward, but we did find common ground and we agreed on some of them. And we moved forward. This is not an attempt to silence anybody. This is an attempt to get better at what we do. That's all that this is. Councillor Dewick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I can help. In the past, not last council, so Councillor Youssef wouldn't know this, we did have committees that looked at this because for this very reason, several councillors would have suggestions. Nobody wanted to necessarily do the work that was required. So a committee looked at it and pulled it all together and based it on the recommended format that UBCM is asking for, the background, the whereases, and then the motion. So that's what's important, is that it meets the criteria of LMLGA, FCM, and UBCM. So that's the one piece. The second piece is, you're absolutely correct. The committee could say, we did our research and you know what, this particular motion has been viewed and adopted or not adopted previously by UBCM 3 or 4 times. So just for council's information, it's already been presented for the last 3 years. So do we really want to send it a 4th time? So it's stuff like that the committee could do. So it's really about making sure that the motion meets all the criteria, that there's feedback, and the recommendation is we support this because it meets all of this and it's never been presented to UBCM, or it was, but in a different format. So it's not to say that any individual's motion wouldn't be accepted by the committee.
And
I hope that helps.
just for clarification, I don't know who's going to be on the subcommittee, but that does not prevent an individual councillor from coming up with their own and presenting it on their own. When we are up for debate, you'd have your subcommittee recommendations, and if somebody wants to add one to there, we're not stopping anybody from doing that. This is just about fine tuning and making sure that we come up with something that makes sense and go from there. But it's not stopping anybody from doing anything.
You're correct. It's just, it helps going through the committee because they can give the background and why it is they're supporting it or not, and even some suggestions about wording around the whereas this, whereas, therefore UBCM supports this, whatever it is. So.
Okay.
And people can vote, like if anybody's interested, tell the mayor, I want to be one of the 3. Fill your boots.
I personally do not want to be on that committee. Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate Councilor Dewick's explanation of what this committee has been in the past, and that's useful. And I just want to make sure, I think like from a good governance point of view, I'm going through the terms of references now, and I think there's a little bit of vagueness in the terms of reference, which is leading to a little bit of confusion. So when I read the terms of reference, I didn't, fully understand the context of all the things that has been said around the table in terms of what role this committee plays. So, I would be supportive of just sort of a rewording of just fleshing out the responsibility section, because the responsibility section says develop and consider resolutions for these three conferences, but it doesn't put forward, I think, that it's what I understand. It is really by and large a procedural committee. It's the recommendations are based on the clarity of the resolution. It's not based on the content of the resolution. And I think those are important points to put there. It's not, the filter is not, the filter is about whether it's been considered before, whether it's all those procedural pieces. And I think that maybe maybe that can be further clarified in the terms of references, And I just want to step back and I say that I do consider this an important conversation for the fact that this committee may outlast this council and may go into future councils where the makeup is different, where there are different considerations around the table. So I do actually really I would actually, given that I don't think there's this is not an urgent item. I think maybe to just sort of clarify the wording and just maybe put additional wording in terms of reference, I would be supportive of a referral motion for this to go back to staff.
So to be clear, the only objective of this committee is to come up with the resolution.
I understand.
Once it's done,
Yeah.
there is no more subcommittee, no need for it at that point. You're mentioning content. What? Sorry, let me finish. I'm speaking to Councillor Tance. You're mentioning content. It would be inappropriate for me to agree with that because it's up to that subcommittee to determine what they want to bring forward, right? That's why I keep saying that you each have the ability to bring forward your own recommendations, right? Nothing is preventing you. This is just trying to get a team effort going to come up with what those resolutions might be and then present them to council. Okay, so it's wordsmithing for sure, but it's also content. It's also looking at the history of what has been presented. So to put resolutions in for the sake of putting resolutions doesn't really get us anywhere. Putting resolutions forward based on what we already know that's out there, based on a whole bunch of criteria. We have until February 8th to submit resolutions. There's not a lot of time, right? So again, that's the purpose of this. There is nothing otherwise than that. If you want to be on the subcommittee, please let me know. If you want to submit your own resolutions, you're perfectly able to do so. This is just a tag team effort because last time the work fell on Katarina, and I think Yusuf, you came up with 6 of them on your own. You want to come up with 6 of them? Hey, have at her. You want to be on the subcommittee? Have at her. Let me know. So I don't know how else to explain that.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I think you've made your point very clear. It really is a subcommittee for the ease of this process to make sure that work doesn't fall on staff, and it really is to proceed to sort of smooth out the process. And I would be supportive in terms of a comprehensive clarity to clarify the responsibilities for the term of reference. But I too can see where the wind is blowing this, and I'm not interested in prolonged discussion. I do want to say I think it's important to abstract out the personalities of individuals around the table, and I really am seeing this just from the lens of good governance and what a good fleshed out terms of reference as well this committee is. And I think that the terms of reference could be better fleshed out here. I appreciate what you're saying, Mayor. I think I'm done here, so I'm moving on.
Councillor, you've already spoken to this one. Does anybody else wish to speak? Okay, Councillor Yusuf, you had your hand up.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I was just kind of thinking out loud, since, as you said, once the subcommittee has done its work, it would be dissolved. Would it then qualify to be a task force rather than a subcommittee? You'd think I'd be out of steam by now.
It's a subcommittee.
It-
Perhaps you can enlighten us?
So I don't see it as a duration. So this committee would exist and could look at the FCM resolutions that would come due later this fall and then continue on.
Actually, those you can't. The deadline for the FCM was January.
Sorry, I'm speaking of the
The following year?
resolutions to be put
Okay.
forward in
that's a
twenty
good
twenty-five. Yeah, so the committee policy allows the creation of subcommittees and task forces. And this one, I did put forward as a subcommittee, so this would just be a committee to work on these continuing on. And to speak to Councillor Tan's concern, every council does consider what committees they want, and they would have to appoint somebody to it. So if they didn't want it, they don't have to.
So
appoint
then,
anybody.
Mr. Chair, would this mean that members appointed to the subcommittee would serve on the subcommittee for the remainder of their term, or would members be revolved annually?
It says annually in the terms of reference.
Annually. Well,
Yes.
annually in the sense that because the deadlines for FCM is January,
Mhm.
so they could then move on to the next one.
Okay.
They could step out of the subcommittee if they don't want to be on there. This is,
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr. Chair, for
Carrera.
those clarifications.
So I was just going to clarify, it says appoint annually. So it's not term specific, but it's not your term, it's annual. But I'd also say that these terms of reference are almost identical to terms of reference for the Corporate Governance and Human Resources Resolution Committee, which actually says part of the actual committee that we already have is doing FCM, LMLGA, and UBCM. The only difference between this one and the committee and the subcommittee is you can have different people on this one to expand voices. That's essentially the only thing different with this one.
and the reason for that is I would like anybody who's interested to come forward. Yeah, Councillor Dewick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not to belabor this, but the terms of reference, I mean, let's go with it. If there are people that are on the committee or others feel that they need to be revised, we can always look at it again. It's really about a timeline. And Councillor Youssef, you'll remember this when we worked on the committee terms of reference overall. The reason for the rationale for subcommittee versus a task force is a subcommittee is an ongoing committee that continues on, where a task force is designed for a task. And so they're appointed or reappointed based on a task the subcommittee continues on.
Okay. Seeing no further comments or questions, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, where did that take us to?
Public question period, Your Worship. Participants in public question period are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak to council. A second opportunity may be provided once all speakers in the queue have had an opportunity to speak. The total time allotted for public question period is 15 minutes. If you wish to inquire about additional opportunities to address council, please contact the corporate officer. For members of the public in attendance in council chambers wanting to participate in public question period, please come forward to the microphone. Please state your name and city of residence for the record before beginning and address your comments to the mayor. For members of the public participating electronically, please register as a speaker by raising your hand, turn on your camera, and clearly state your name and city of residence for the record before you begin and address your comments and questions to the mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll start question period. Is there anybody in chambers or online who wishes to address? Is there anybody online? No?
No, we have one member of the public, but they have not put their hand up.
Okay, seeing as how there's nobody in chambers and nobody who's putting their hand up online, we'll end the question period. Moving on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
The next item is mayor and council verbal reports.
Okay, shall I start first? Ooh, I got a button.
A second.
Yes, highlights. We're still here. This might be our longest one so far. All right, it's our last session before we break. So I thought it would be good to do some highlights of our year. Because it's important to celebrate and remember everything that we've accomplished this year. Earlier this morning, we heard from all our departments about the stuff that they're working on, and there was a lot of stuff going on. All right, here we go. Yay. So, want to share a few highlights about the themes of New Brown Foundations that we rolled out on our third Leadership Summit. Maple Ridge is a city on the move with an exciting and dynamic future. This was highlighted at the 3 Leadership Summit meetings we hosted on housing, economic development, and the environment, which brought together senior government leaders, industry, and subject matter experts and community members. We committed a year ago that we would be a council of collaboration and consultation, and I think that we have been doing that quite well. Thank you. And these events and the people that participated show what we can accomplish when we work together to share ideas and forge solutions together. We launched our Maple Ridge Moves advocacy program, and establishing our priorities for transportation investments in our community. The first of our 4 goals was realized when TransLink announced that Maple Ridge to Langley bus rapid transit route would be part of the first priorities for the region. We're grateful for the recognition, support, and confidence of regional leaders in our growing community. Maple Ridge was chosen by the BC and federal government to make several announcements throughout the year, including investments in EV infrastructure, federal funding to end gang violence, and most recently about the Youth Emergency Shelter Pilot Program, which is big because I can remember fighting for this back when I was an MP. Okay. We were in a national spotlight last month when the Prime Minister and Premier were here to announce the $1 billion expansion of the eMolly Energy Canada's facility in Maple Ridge to become Canada's largest non-vehicle lithium-ion battery manufacturer. Economic development is a key part of our strategic plan, and this announcement secures the existing 100 jobs and will create 350 new jobs. This investment will make a substantial change in the industrial tax base in our community and attract other new investment and construction activity through the project cycle. I've had the honor of representing our community in Ottawa and Victoria, and I want to thank our MLAs and our MP for their collaboration and advocacy as we seek partnerships to deliver important capital projects and programs. This is slide 4, right? Yeah, okay. These photos show a number of infrastructure projects that were completed this year, expanding our cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, new signalized intersections, and we saw the completion of 1 phase of the Abernathy 4-lane expansion, and in 2024, we will begin work on a section from 224th to 230th. The expansion of the road network from 210 west on Golden Ears Way and east from 232 are part of our Maple Ridge Moves priorities and gives components of our strategic transportation plan. We are a city on the move. I'll now focus on our brand theme, Bold by Nature. This refers to the amazing natural setting that we are blessed to live in and the amazing citizens we serve. These photos remind us about investments that we have made in the environment and park spaces in our community and work that is in process to begin to bring new facilities to our community. Earlier this year, we opened up the new Tsuyuki Park in Albion neighborhood, the beach volleyball venue for the Maple Ridge 2024 Summer Games, kicked off public consultation on the new multi-use path on the Fraser River in Port Haney, planted trees at Maple Ridge Park, and celebrated Earth Day to kick off the 2023 festival season. Work is underway on the city's urban forest management strategy, and one of the big projects that we'll kick off in 2024 is a community consultation on the new recreation feasibility study for our fast-growing community. This slide shows off our staff doing work in the community, maintaining our green spaces and the Goodbye Chums event where families were invited to help start salmon on their life cycle on the Kanaka River. There's a great photo there from the bike ride organized by the folks at Hub, who continue to advocate passionately, I might say, for improvements to our cycling infrastructure so people have sustainable ways of getting around. Our third Brown Foundation is driven by community. This gives us the opportunity to showcase the programs that project the city out into the neighborhoods, like the hot summer nights and the Rock the Block events. Maple Ridge's vibrancy is enhanced by community organizations, advocates, and volunteers that represent all aspects of life in our community. Sports, arts, heritage, and charity organizations work tirelessly to make life better in the community. That is one of Maple Ridge's superpowers, and the photos here celebrate the people that make our city great. Who can forget the Craft Hockeyville promotion? Remember that one? And while a community in Ontario was selected, all of us were grateful for the volunteers who were investing their time for youth sports in our community. We celebrated the 150th anniversary of the RCMP, the Heritage Awards, Seniors Week, Canada Day, National Indigenous Peoples Day, Orange Shirt Day, Multicultural Festival, and so many other events. At the core of each of these events are amazing volunteers to donate their most precious resource, their time, to all of these events. I want to finish this section by noting that earlier in 2023, we introduced Laura Butler and Ernie Dakin as our chair and co-chair for the Maple Ridge 2024 BC Summer Games that we will host in July. We also did the flag raising 1 year out from the opening ceremonies. This is an event that will demonstrate how life in Maple Ridge is driven by community. Finally, in 2024, Maple Ridge will celebrate 150 years since our founding of the community. Early in the new year, we will share the plan and branding for this incredible community celebration, which will go from April to October. Party time. Finally, I want to finish my reflection on 2023 with some much deserved thanks. Let me start with all of you around this table, and I've said this time and time again. It's been an absolute joy and inspiration to see your passion for the community and your commitment to the community. I appreciate your passionate views, your dedication, and your patience as we work together to find the best solutions and outcomes to move our community forward. We don't always agree, and that's okay, as long as we're able to continue to work with each other. Thank you to all of our staff that are left here who work every day to deliver the services we all rely on daily, such as turning on our taps for clean water, services we sometimes take for granted. Thank you to our staff from all departments for their hard work and dedication to delivering excellent service to their neighbors. I want to thank our first responders at the Maple Ridge, there he is, got one here, at the Maple Ridge Fire Department, our bylaws and community safety officers, and the Ridge Meadows RCMP civilian staff and frontlines officers. This year, with the loss of Constable O'Brien in the line of duty, we were reminded of the danger in some of the services our city delivers. We appreciate what you do every single day. As I noted before, our city is powered by volunteers, from citizens on patrol to the many volunteers that help deliver festivals, events, the arts, and those who help out with our food bank and Operation Red Nose. Thank you for your service. My final thank you goes out to all of the community members we hear from by email at our meetings and out at the community events we attend. Thank you for taking the time to share your perspectives and provide feedback. We are all here to serve you and ensure that you feel safe, connected, and proud of your city. And I want to add that, well, we get all sorts of emails. A lot of them are pointing out the fails and the pitfalls. We do get a lot of people that are starting to see the difference that our team, that our staff are making. And that is something that we will continue to do. So it does help to get feedback from people. I keep saying finally. Finally, it has been an amazing year, And I hope that everyone has a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, yay, Happy Kwanzaa, and any other holiday that people celebrate in this month. I wish you the best holiday season and that you recharge to start 2024 full of hope and optimism as we continue our journey to the future. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you. Okay. Who wants to follow up on that? Councillor Dewey.
I'll be short and sweet, but I think we all feel this way. I really, really appreciated our operations staff coordinating the float and the Christmas parade, Christmas in the Park and Santa Parade was by far one of the best that I've ever participated in. And that float was so much fun. And to see all of our citizens on the sidelines rooting everybody on, the staff did an amazing job. Both the operations, our park staff, all the volunteers just knocked it. Like, it was fantastic. I can't say enough about it. It was really, really well done. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope everyone has a great break.
A well-deserved break. Thank you very much, Councillor Dewey. Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to again reiterate the fact that Firefighters for Families this Saturday collected over $12,500. I say over because, of course, all the foodstuffs that were donated as well. And it's really heartening to see that most of the donations come from individuals that have either used the services of the food bank and know how valuable it is, or those that are, quite frankly, still. I recall one example this Saturday while I was out there with the firefighters of this young lady who had a tiny little purse and all she had in it was coins. And when she saw what we were doing and she asked what we were doing and I explained to her that it was for the Friends in Need Food Bank, she just unzipped it and dumped all of it out. That's why this is the best place on earth, because of our people, because of first responders and individuals that are willing to step up. And I'll close by, again, plugging that we do have Operation Red Nose in our community this year. Please, please, please take the time to volunteer, or better yet, take the time to use the service. We'd love to come out and give you a hand. You don't have to be intoxicated or under the influence. If you're not comfortable driving because of the weather, if you're tired, we would love to come out, make sure that you get home safely in your vehicle. And if you choose to donate, well, 100% of that donation goes to kids sport. And as you were mentioning earlier, Worship, that youth sports in our community is very, very important. And luckily, there must be something in the water, because we tend to produce elite athletes that come out of this community. So let's keep that cycle going, and please do utilize Operation Red Nose while we have it this year. It's going to run every weekend except for Christmas weekend. We'll be running only on Friday, and then the last night will be New Year's Eve. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, and we'll see you all in the next year.
Thank you. Councillor Carreras.
Super quick because it's been a long day. I just, sorry? It's been a long, good long day. I was able to attend the Maple Ridge Community Foundation granting ceremony, and this is a great foundation doing amazing stuff in our community. And they gave out tens of thousands of dollars. And what was so amazing about the night is every community or organization that received something stood up and talked about the work that they are doing in our community. And it is impactful, and it is heartfelt, and it is significant. And the money, they were so appreciative of the money. And so leading off on that, there is another Maple Ridge Community Foundation opportunity to donate to them. Baker Street off of McClure has their big Santa event, and all the whole street, it's all lit up. Santa's there, the whole bit. And you can make a donation to the Maple Ridge Community Foundation Community Chest to support those in our community. So check it out. It's off of McClure, off 240th. And then one last thing is a few of us attended the holiday chamber party where they released the nominees for the Business Excellence Awards. Go on their website, go on their Facebook, check it out. These are great businesses, organizations, community champions that are doing really, really great work within our community. With that, I, like all of us, looking forward to a few weeks off, and I look forward to coming back in 2024.
Thank you. Final words? Final words? Oh, wow. I think we're seeing as how we have no further business, I will adjourn. Oh, wait. Just a reminder for those of you, change your passwords so you don't have to come back in. Your passwords are expiring this month and it's hard to change them on your phone.